teleconference process. If the meeting is recessed, callers will be put on hold until the meeting reconvenes, with the exception at noon, where callers will be asked to call back in. This helps with call quality. Please note this meeting is being recorded and may be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. We also ask all attendees to please mute their devices to reduce disruptions to the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
Good morning, Reeve-Link. Brian from Administration. Administration is looking to add one in-camera item, and it's under ATIA Section 29, Organizational Chart Amendment.
Thank you. We'll add that as an amendment under Agenda Section 10. Any other additions or changes? If not, a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Also move.
Thank you, Councilor Priest. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to, are there any council notices of motion? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 3.1, bylaw 2025-06.
Good morning, Council. Sherry Bars with Administration to present bylaw 2025-06, the Fire and Emergency Services bylaw for second and third readings. The report is found on page 3 of the agenda package. The county's current fire and emergency service provisions are set out in bylaw 2019-06, which primarily addresses regional emergency management structures, intermunicipal coordination, and general enforcement. While it provides a foundation for fire service operations and references fire prevention and suppression, it lacks operational detail, regulatory authority, and enforcement clarity needed to meet the county's growing service demands and align with current best practices. To address these gaps, Administration drafted bylaw 2025-06, which updates the county's fire and emergency services framework by clarifying existing provisions, introducing new sections, and aligning with current legislation, including the Municipal Government Act, Safety Codes Act, Emergency Management Act, and the Forest and Prairie Protection Act. A detailed side-by-side table of comparison of bylaw 2019-06 and bylaw 2025-06 was provided at first reading on September 2nd, 2025, which is in table 1, starting on page 4 of the agenda package. The draft bylaw was revised to incorporate council feedback from first reading, and the key updates included revisions to sections H and J in section 12.1, the cost recovery for running fires, to remove the subjective term reasonable, and to provide clear expectations regarding failure to prevent running fires. 12.H1 was revised to read, let me see, to remove and strike out, taking reasonable steps. So it will now read, failure to prevent running fires, failing to implement fire prevention measures, including monitoring, controlling, or extinguishing a fire, or maintaining sufficient resources on site to prevent a fire from spreading beyond its point of origin and becoming a running fire. 12.1J was revised to read, unsafe use of fire, flammable materials, conducting any activity using fire, open flame, an ignition source, or flammable explosive material without implementing precautions necessary to control sparks, prevent the spread of fire, and ensure extinguishing capability. These are the minimum items that our fire chiefs would look at that were contained on site should they attend a fire that was out in a field or anything. So those are the things they would look for to consider that they took precaution. Section 6.1.3, assistance calls, found on page 3, was updated to clarify language to ensure assistance is based on the defined level of service and that deployment decisions to follow the established chain of command. This section was revised to read, when additional resources are required to respond to an incident within a fire protection area, the fire association chief or incident commander may request assistance through the regional dispatch center consistent with the level of service established for a responding fire district. Requests for assistance shall be made in the following order of priority. County fire departments or other association fire departments within the county, subject to their available resources and level of service. And then section 16.1 updated the reference from county manager to chief administrative officer to reflect current governance terminology. The key improvements in bylaw 2025-06 broadens the scope to formally recognize all emergency response functions, reorganizes content for clarity with definitions and a dedicated schedule, and strengthens roles, lines of authority for fire chiefs and incident commanders, expands enforcement, offenses, and cost recovery provisions, updates terminology to reflect provincial legislation and best practice. If adopted, bylaw 2025-06 will provide clearer guidance for residents, fire personnel, and administration, ensuring consistent, enforceable, and effective service delivery. Administration recommends that Council grant second and third readings of bylaw 2025-06. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, on the fire map on page 23, I'm just curious, there's some colored blocks scattered around there. What are those things? Well, they're like orange squares, like on Rocky Ford, straight above the R, another one over the D, and one over the O, one on the boundary, a couple below. They're kind of scattered throughout the map.
Those are symbols that we can have removed if they extract from the map. I'm not clear what those symbols are.
Okay. So nobody really knows why they're on there.
It could have been the way that when we extracted the map.
Oh, okay.
Some symbols and like when you have to turn on, but we can try to do another.
Oh, I'm
map
just
to clean it up.
curious what's there. Some underground facility or
No,
something?
they're so small.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but if you'd like, we can have that map cleaned up to have the symbols removed.
No, it doesn't bother me that much. I was just curious.
Any other questions?
I'll make the motion that council approves the amendments to bylaw 2025-06 being the fire and emergency services bylaw as presented.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any further questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes.
I move council move second reading of bylaw 2025-06 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Council's wishes for third.
Excuse me, I'll move, the council moves third reading of bylaw 2025-06 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We will move to, and just thank you to administration for all the work on updating that bylaw. We'll move to agenda item 3.2, DP extension.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Suzanne Hayes, Development Officer with the county. This begins on page 54 of the agenda package. It is to request an extension for DP 2024-033. It was an application that was approved in 2024, and the application was for I'll just bring up the location plan first here, which is on page 57. So it is kind of northeast of Strathmore. It is for a multi-use event and cultural center. So the application was to include an event and equestrian center for public gatherings such as rodeos, artistic and theatrical performances, and supplemental activities. The request seeks to extend the commencement deadline for the DP from September 3rd, 2025 to September 3rd, 2026, providing an additional 12 months to begin construction of the project. There is a site plan and aerial photos on pages 58 to 61 if you would like to look. The proponent has stated that they need the extension due to recent staff changes and the ongoing recruitment of a new CEO to oversee completion of the project. The land use bylaw stipulates that if a development authorized by permit is not commenced within 12 months from the effective date or carried out with reasonable diligence, the permit approval ceases and the permit is deemed null and void. The master schedule of fees stipulates that a development extension may be granted one time only. This is the first extension request for this application. And council has the standard 3 response options found on page 55. Please let me know if you have questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just for clarity, this was requested by the applicant, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Since we did original approval, there's been discussion that there was other sites that they were looking at. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's kind of hard because we gave first approval and then I find out later that they were looking elsewhere. But I don't have a problem with giving them another year because I know after that we cannot grant another extension. So I'll make the motion that council approve the request to extend the commencement deadline for the development permit DP 2024-033 to September 3rd, 2026.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 5, our consent agenda. Council's wishes.
I'd like to remove 5.3 and move it over to business arising, 6.1 business arising. And if that's okay, then I'll move the consent agenda 5.1 and 5.2.
So I think we'll want 2 motions. Let's
Okay.
do the first motion to remove agenda item 5.3.
Okay.
So do you wish to move that?
I will make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Eichert. I'll call the question. That motion is carried. And then looking for a motion for the balance of the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda. That includes item 5.1 and 5.2.
Thank you. I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 6.1, WHMB correspondence.
The reason, I just got a question, got 2 members on the board that were there. Was there any reason, like, are the questions unreasonable that you're not going to answer these questions? I believe that it's very pertinent because it is taxpayers' dollars.
The letter says the letter was discussed by the board and it will be responded to accordingly.
Your microphone.
Yeah, so in the future, it'll be answered accordingly.
So with an with an election coming up, and with the ratepayers concerned about transparency and accountability all across all the municipalities, the board thinks that this is a good idea.
The board wasn't aware this was an election issue.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on agenda item 6.1?
The procedure for, is much the same as here. You get a motion, staff writes a letter, and then the next meeting, the letter comes back. Much the same.
Just a reminder, this is the second time that letter was sent. And it was ignored on both occasions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think for clarity, I would say with this response, it has not been ignored. I see an indication that a response says responded to accordingly. I guess that's open to interpretation, but we're hearing from a colleague who is board chair that answers will potentially be coming in the future. So I guess we'll wait. I hear the point about just the potential for continuity with an election, but also hear the point that there is some continuity with administrative staff. So we can look forward to a future response. Any other questions or discussion? I will just reiterate from previously, I think this is a great opportunity to increase transparency around the project and for comprehensive information to be made available to our ratepayers and to the taxpayers that fund the WHMB. So looking forward to that transparency. Any other discussion? We should have a motion to accept for information. Is that appropriate administration?
Through the chair, yes, you can do that.
I'll move that we accept the letter from WHMB as information.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any final questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 7.1. My report's in the package on 89. Do you just want to highlight a note about a recent Calgary Herald article? The comments attributed to me were taken from a social media post that I'd made on my personal account. And while I stand by my comments, I want to be clear I did not make them on behalf of Wheatland County. I'd also like to draw attention to Community Futures undertook a renovation of we had sort of an unfinished basement. And so we made a modest investment in some renovations and created several office spaces that are now available for rent in that lower level. It's absolutely beautiful space. There's communal kitchen space and washrooms and photocopying and meeting space and that type of thing, and then individual private offices. So there's a link there to the listing. This will, once these offices are rented, this will really help generate an alternative revenue stream because we've been, I'd have to double check. I feel like it's 17 years with static funding for Community Futures from the federal government. And so opportunity to people that might be looking for office space. I'd also like to thank the CGC team for taking the time to tour Wheatland County Council and our administration through the manufacturing facility. Seeing the progress that they have made was truly impressive. And just the innovation and the commitment to safety and to just a successful manufacturing facility was incredible to see, and I was grateful we got to do that. I also want to share about the Community Futures Wild Rose Try a Trade Day. So we had over 300 people attend throughout the day. We had 7 post-secondary education institutions, 8 hands-on demonstration tables, 4 community resource providers, and 4 area schools. And through sort of the partnership of all of those incredible people, mostly youth, but there were adults that participated as well, we're able to try different trades. I spoke to a couple of different people in healthcare adjacent, like healthcare practitioners who had students who were actively engaging with some of the hands-on activities that they had and were interested in, had not previously considered a career path in that specific healthcare field, but were actively considering that after the Try a Trade Day, as well as youth that were interested in cabinet making because they had never had that opportunity to actually be hands-on with the tools and to do that. So just an incredible opportunity for our youth. And Tricia, who was the lead organizer, is already planning next year's and planning bigger and better. So the original plan was to have one sort of based out of Strathmore and then one based out of, for kind of Strathmore, Wheatland area, and then one in our more northern part of the Wild Rose region in Three Hills and kind of to serve the Nehill region. But there has been some discussion around potentially running 2 next year just so that we can maintain that opportunity for local youth. The executive summary for Community Futures is there as well, with the local impact. And while this fiscal year we're not showing loans in Wheatland County yet, we do frequently have business owners whose businesses are located in other more urban communities, but who are ratepayers or residents of Wheatland County. So with that, I will move my report as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Hearing none, I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.2.
Thank you. My report is on page 93 in the agenda package. I attended the CRMA directors meeting in Three Hills, was in the absence of the reviewer doing another meeting. So got to meet with our leaders of other municipalities, discuss some zone speaker ideas for after the election about, and I suggested basically the way you get things, the way the government works and who's you would talk to at different MLA levels, what RMA is already in process of doing. So people, it's 4 years is a short period of time. And for people to know coming in what's already been in the works would be very helpful for a lot of people in the coming. Then Drumheller executive meeting, we are presenting the budget to the board at next Thursday. And hopefully it is sound enough to get approval by the board. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'll move my report as presented.
Any questions for Deputy Reeve Clausen? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. I'm going to declare potential pecuniary interest for agenda item 7.21. So I'm going to recuse myself from the meeting and I will turn the chair over to Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Thank you. So I had asked to have the article from the Calgary Herald be discussed. Kind of reminded me like I was on the board in the last cycle of committee board presentations. And I was there in 2024, and there are some things that kind of sparked my mind that were in open discussions. They were not in camera at the time. So just want to have some key dates here. The letter that I'm first aware of this came was May 27th, 2024 from AHS. The board did have a meeting on June 3rd, 2024. I'm being asked by residents all the time. And of course, this is an election year, so people are very engaged and want to know what's going on. This has made the headlines, so people are asking. People are asking, where's the money? Who makes the decisions? Some of the people that are involved on that board are also on other controversial boards, even including the town hall build. So the knowledge that I have of it, I had asked a question, I have email trains to prove these. Asked on procurement policy, there was none. Asked about how the funds were spent on a dispatch upgrade without board approval, and I believe that was $68,000 and change. There was no approval of funds. There was no board motions to support that. That's when I was on the board. The board really, I got outvoted. Nobody seemed to really say understand or care that that's the way it was. So then I fast forward to now and I see that the same issues are still there. I don't understand why, but when you have a contract to provide a vital service, I'm deeply concerned. I don't know if anybody has any comments. I'm welcome to having discussion.
So going forward after that, that was done before we got on. So a lot of the stuff that your questions you're asking have been in camera so far. And so can't say too much. The contract for the AHS contract is coming up in September of 26. So I'm sure the next little while this either a new agreement or something will happen in the meantime. But as it stands right now, we're still in discussions as in camera that we can't really discuss outside of that. The letter was supposed to be done confidential, so we don't know. No one knows who the leak was or how it got to the paper. So
I understand, but this was also back in June of 2024. Strathmore Times was in the room, and the same sounds like the exact same issue has come forward a year later. So I don't understand why it would be in camera at one point, and the first point it wasn't. Because, yeah, we walked in, Strathmore Times was here. I don't know who called them then, but I believe Councillor Eichert was in the room at that time too as an alternate. So my problem is so our involvement in this, I mean, that contract is between AHS and a board. What we have here is we also contract out fire dispatch through the same organization on a per capita basis. And with me, it's our public funds that are going into this. And I just want to, number one, make sure we still have service. This is very concerning to me. Anything you can say about that?
Yeah, for sure, the service is running as usual. There's been no break in any service at all.
I'm just curious if there's any plan to eventually let the public know what's happening and what the resolution will be. Do you expect that at some point there'll be a report or is there an audit happening or something that you can then publicly, explain what's happening? There's a lot of uncertainty.
We're not there yet, but yeah, for sure there'll be public. The board will demand it for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? My concern is fire dispatch. We had discussed this before as council. We had directed administration to get us some cost coverage and comparisons. And in the past, we have knowledge that there is other options out there. I just want to make sure we have our bases covered in the event that we don't have fire service. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that council direct administration to explore alternative fire dispatch service providers, including assessment of service levels, technology integration, backup and redundancy capabilities and cost implications, and to bring a report back to council with findings and recommendations. And that will be for the new council to decide. I think it's very important that we don't know where we're going, but we need to have alternatives and to know what's going forward. You want to? Yeah.
So administration just recently did give us a report about other service providers that we could do. Are you asking for more detail than what was provided then, or?
I believe that was a year ago, but just to basically update. So, because things change in a year, we all know costs have gone up. We also know that we've invested into a radio program and to make sure that will integrate with we went from an older type of radio to an AFRAC system. How that works, I don't know, but this to me is an operational decision. It is something that our administration team will have the tools to look and see if it fits. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does, but I think it's smart for future councils to have that option and to know what the values are in that.
Fair enough. Yep.
Go ahead.
I believe staff did a presentation on this within the year. I don't see the need of doing it again. I don't see any fear with Wademza and this newspaper article going down and lapsing the service. No, I don't think it's appropriate at this time. I can't support it.
I'm uncomfortable try to put something on to a new council that's coming forward. I'm just wondering, is administration in a good enough position that if we don't make this motion that they will have, like that does administration feel that the information they have about other fire dispatch options, are they up to date with those? Like, do we need to make this motion, or do you feel comfortable going, we have done, is it an ongoing thing that you keep?
Through the deputy read to council, yes, we keep up to date as we watch things, and as we're implementing the AFEX system, the only thing that would be out of date is whether the pricing has changed or anything like that. But the service providers in the area, nothing of that would change. And the most recent update was December of 2024 that staff brought to council regarding the dispatch options.
And then just through the chair as well, I did, after these news articles, I did email the CAO at WDEMSA as well. And I did note that, you know, we do have concerns about these articles, and, you know, he wasn't able to share much, you know, as expected, because it was an in-camera session that, you know, the administration and the board did meet. I did convey in an email to him, though, that, you know, administration does realize that we do pay a premium for the service right now at $8 a cap. So I said, you know, any price increases based out on that, we probably would have to look at different service providers. So I think the report that we did to council in December of 2024, 2025, I don't know if we really got into that technology side of it, but the cost per cap, WDEMSA was the highest for sure. So we do, again, understand we're paying a premium. But if the per capita rate does go up, then I think that, you know, we will be looking at it regardless. We do understand we pay a premium, but I guess we'll just kind of see what happens with that on that side.
Thank you.
Just pointing out that it was almost a year ago that it was presented. By the time administration gets back, this report would be probably about the same time of year to the day. There has been differences in technology. There could be a possible, most likely a rate increase. So I'm just trying to have the information available readily. So if something council decides that information is at your future council's fingertips, and actually after that point, in my opinion, this should not be a political decision at all. This should be an administration function after that point. How this has got tied up into politics, it is a contract service to provide dispatch to the area. It should not be in our hands. It should be in the hands of our policies and procedures that staff review and do all these things. But it's not the case right now. But that would be my intention, is it would go to that, and then it wouldn't be political at all, and it shouldn't be. It is a service that we need to provide for the frontline people, from people that have access to, for emergencies, through dispatch to get the best service. Go ahead, Councilor Kester.
You're right. We don't know what's going to happen. We need up-to-date information. So why don't we wait and see if we need to have update information? Staff has said they're on top of it. This predicament that WDEMS is in is not about dispatch. It's about, I don't know what it's about. If I read it in the Strathmore or in the Calgary Herald, it's about finances, not about dispatch, not about closing WDEMS down. WDEMS is staying, as far as I know. This isn't even tied together. And yeah, when the time comes, we can investigate it. I don't think much has changed since December. And I think you can't go ahead and assume that WDEMS is going down. I think that's, just give me one shred of evidence that you think WDEMS is going down.
This motion will give WDEMS a chance to put the numbers in writing and compare.
They've done it.
Is there currently projected new pricing from the board that you can share with us? Okay.
I will be sharing that in my report.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion's on the floor. Call the question. And that is defeated. Wait for Reeve Link to come back and turn the floor back over to her.
Perfect. We will resume the agenda at agenda item 7.3, Division 1 Councillor Report.
Thank you. My report is on page 95 of the package, and I just want to highlight the Alice Western Canada tour that I attended. I have to say a big thank you to Sarah Schumacher for organizing the tour. She did an amazing job. It's flawlessly run, and she really showcased numerous Wheatland County landowners who have embraced the Alice approach to providing ecosystem services to our county. So it was really very informative and inspirational to see the kinds of things that some of our landowners are doing to protect riparian areas and plant some trees and put up some hawk posts and have crossings over streams for the cattle to cross so they're not going through the stream, things like that. It was really very inspirational. So kudos to her and her team for organizing such a great tour. Honestly, that's all I'm going to just highlight. The rest is in the package, but so I'll move my report as presented unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to 7.31, ratifying attendance at the Alice Western Canada tour.
So I neglected to request from council prior to the tour, but I did attend for 2 days, and so I'm going to ask that council ratify my attendance for 2 days, per diems and mileage for my time spent there. I do think it's an important thing for a PAC member and chair of the ASB to have attended, and it does help educate me in my role, and so that I can advocate to other landowners if they're interested in participating in the program. So I do think it's an important thing that I have attended.
Council's wishes.
I'd like to move to ratify 2 full days per diem and mileage for Councillor Laprice's attendance at the Alice Western Canada tour.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to 7.32, Wheatland Regional Corporation revised unanimous shareholders agreement and bylaws.
So me again. I had presented on June 17th council meeting that the revised bylaw and unanimous shareholder agreement were acceptable to the members, Wheatland County members sitting on the board, and but we had only accepted as information, and actually WRC would like to just receive a letter from Wheatland County indicating our support for the revised documents. So I'll just move that administration sends a letter to WRC indicating that Wheatland County, as a shareholder to WRC, approves the revised bylaw and unanimous shareholder agreement as presented to council at June 17th meeting. Hope you can read my writing.
Thank you, Councillor Laprice. While administration is entering the motion, any questions or discussion?
Just a point of clarity, just from administration. My apologies. I feel like I kind of missed this one, but I think for that the bylaw itself, that's something that the board can do. But the unanimous shareholder agreement, we actually should direct council should direct the REIT to sign it after it's approved. So when I was talking to Brad today, I don't think there's many, I think everything is resolved on our end. I think it's just more of a administrative function that we have to just get council to pass a resolution to do. That being said, we just need a copy, the last updated copy from Leah, and it should be done by the next council meeting. We can bring that to the next council meeting.
So I believe the last updated copy was included in our June 17th package. You should have it, I think. Or,
Yeah, administration doesn't think there's anything different in that agreement to sign. We just need to just double check. I think that's the only thing. So apologies, that's on me, and I take full responsibility for not bringing that one back to council. But it should be just easy enough to get that one signed, the USA.
okay. So does this change the motion then? So we don't need, so, sorry, I'm,
Apologies, I think the letter might be a little fruitless, just because the bylaw is something of the board. It doesn't necessarily need our consent from council. Although I think the bylaw does have administrations. We did look over it and it looks really good. But as for the actual unanimous shareholders agreement, we should just have a resolution by council to sign the unanimous shareholders agreement.
So perhaps a motion directing administration to bring back the appropriate procedures to finalize the required documents for Wheatland Regional Corporation. And then that way we can just, there can be some discussions between the administrations on what's required.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the articles or the bylaws, but often those need to be amended at like an annual meeting as well, or things like that. I don't know the specifics for.
Yeah, that unanimous shareholders agreement, we're like very confident that it just needs to be like a resolution by council to direct our council to sign it. So it does provide the correct authority on the county's end to sign and enter into an agreement. And then, but we think that everything is good to go. It's just like more of a procedural thing that we can definitely take care of at the next council meeting.
so I will retract that motion, given the information here.
And then just direct administration to bring the USA back for signing at the next council meeting.
Is that okay? All right. Okay, thank you.
So Councillor Laprise, you would like to rescind your first motion
Yes, I would.
and make a second motion that I think Shanna or administration is probably drafting right now.
I think so, yes. It's exactly what I had in my head.
Yep. Perfect. And then you just may want to Edmund's already got it. You just may want to review your articles of association, or I'm trying to remember, I'd have to look, but the processes within the originating documents for WRC as a municipally controlled corporation to do something like amend bylaws. The process is likely spoken to in those originating documents. Which, with gratitude to our administration, they spent a couple of years putting all those together for us. So. Perfect. So administration has the motion that council direct administration to bring back the WRC unanimous shareholders agreement for signing at the next council meeting. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.4, Division 3 Councillor Report.
Yes, my report's on the server. I did forget to put the CGC tour down. It was a big highlight of the month. I can't believe the size of that building. It's very impressive, and I'm very excited for this to be coming to our area. It's very nice. With that, I'm going to move my report as accepted.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.41.
So I've asked this to come to council. I've been getting many phone calls, and I think staff have been too, about the fiber internet that's in our area. I was told that it, now, like we know that the one has gone to Carsland, and the other one is told by me, or told by people that it runs right past Speargrass, another one, fiber optics. And they're wondering how they could get use of it, or and I'd like to know this too. What is the process? Who do we talk to? What can we do? And when you're explaining it to me, can you explain it to me like I just landed on Earth? Not too in-depth.
That's through the chair. So the fiber line that's running past Speargrass, I believe that's some. I'm not aware exactly of which fiber line they're talking about there. I do know that there might be something, but that might be transmission lines, not necessarily internet. The fiber project that we did do a couple of years ago to the industrial zone, Carsland wasn't in scope. However, there might be some equipment there. So staff has actually tried to follow up with Rogers many times on their intent there. And we've also been looking into, what sort of projects, if, that they're aiming to do there. And administration has been getting a lot of questions along those lines. We've been instructed by Rogers to just send them to Rogers to inquire about it. And we haven't heard feedback back yet from that. So, just in the summary, there is opportunity there with fiber close by, if that hopefully helps.
I have a follow-up question then. Is the federal government, is there grants that we can apply for that would help? I remember when we were doing the other one, there was letters of support that we needed to do, and there was a procurement on that. Is there something else we can do as a county that can help this along?
Yes, through the chair. So this is a great question. Most of those funding projects require basically a lot of the times shovel ready. This is one of the reasons why we weren't able to pursue the Universal Broadband Fund when we did it. Obviously, it also requires a certain amount of population in the area as well. So there are some certain factors that made it not possible for us to do it last time. So in looking into this, though, most of the feedback we have gotten, and I've had a chance to talk with TELUS. They've got back to us, and we've also had chances to chat with some other fiber-related organizations. And the resounding consensus is that we have to attract those ISPs, internet providers, through some kind of a subsidization. So if it's of interest to council to do something like this, we would probably need to spark off some kind of a project and subsidize it in some kind of way. And that's sort of the consensus that we've been getting from those organizations.
So another follow-up question. Would it be beneficial to look into the cost and the availability or the want to maybe try to talk to Rogers again? Perhaps maybe a letter from council looking for some encouraging, I don't know, something to negotiate with or something to go forward with it?
Yes, through the chair. We can certainly do that. I think just in the heart of our policies on procurement, we probably would want to do some kind of an RFI or RFQ to see what's out there and what they can provide and what opportunities we have. And we could provide that back to council.
Okay. And when you're saying cost, is this so when they have the fiber optics to the town or to the hamlet, is it a tower that they'd put up, or is it something that has to go to every home if it's actually on fiber optics? If you are on fiber optics, it goes to every home, right?
Yes. So through the chair, there's different options that these ISPs offer. Sometimes they'll drop something like a wireless central tower that is faster for within the zone. Or if we wanted to support a project that's fiber to the house. So a good example of that is Cheadle was done during our project because it was convenient at that particular location. But so if it's of interest to us to want to support that, then we could support fiber to the house, which then you get really high bandwidth speeds. And of course, a lot of people have access to Starlink there. But of course, then there's the question of its stability and things like that, right? I mean, it is pretty stable, but fiber is obviously a lot more stable. You can have fiber going 2 different directions in case, say, somebody runs over a line one direction, the internet will still work because it's able to be routed through another line somewhere else. So those are things that can be looked into, and it would be at the discretion, say, of council of what sort of direction we would want to support in, say, doing an RFQ, if we would want to have a ISP come in and drop fiber to the house directly, or some kind of a wireless solution. So most of the questions, though, that I've been getting is fiber to the house. That's what people are mostly interested in. And of course, there is a cost to dropping it at every house.
But there's a cost for people to have Starlink too.
That's right.
So I was just going to comment that important for council to consider in the resolution that there are other options that are available for these communities besides Rogers and TELUS. Perhaps something administration could do is bring back a report to council just in regards to that, and just exploring what options are available, even for fiber connections that council may want to pursue.
Yeah, that would be
one of the issues with like the TELUS's and the Rogers is they keep their operations very confidential, and so it is sometimes hard to get information. Nonetheless, there are other options out there that the county could pursue.
Yeah, there's definitely smaller ISPs that may see this as an opportunity. So perhaps a motion along the lines of, given the investment in a connection point through the broadband project that Wheatland County has previously, this doesn't have to all be in the motion. Just to direct administration to bring a report back to council with options to expand residential broadband service or internet service.
Get that? Yeah.
Because we did make that investment in the connection point, and I think part of the rationale when we were discussing that was that may increase the viability of a business case for private sector, whether it was the partner that we had in the broadband, or we certainly want to align with our procurement policies and procedures and make that an open opportunity. But we've already made that investment in that connection point, which may help make a more viable business case for any ISP to bring that service. And it could look in different ways. And that might be an opportunity even for the ISPs, or perhaps we do some upfront community engagement to see what kind of speeds people are looking at. I think that Starlink is an excellent sort of plan B for anybody in a rural or remote area. Affordability can be challenging with it. And so many ISPs can bring, whether it's fiber to the premise or another option for a more affordable internet service, particularly where you have some more dense potential users. So, but I think the best thing would be for administration to bring that report back, give council the options of how do we look at advancing this or potentially advancing this, and there may be ways to do it. I hear the point about potential subsidization, but I think you could start by initially approaching it as, is this a viable business case for somebody to generate revenue off of, right? And then if it comes back that there's zero interest in that from private industry, then that's an opportunity for council to look at more broadly. But that's when you do have to start weighing other options.
So with that, I'm going to move that council direct administration to bring a report back to council with options to expand internet service to residents.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.5.
There's just through the
Yes, thank you.
10 o'clock button.
I should have recalled that. I'm very pleased to welcome representatives from the Transition Accelerator regarding. Certainly. We're going to start with a 5-minute break, so we will reconvene at 10:06, and at that time we will welcome our delegation. My apologies, Zach, that I was not on the ball about our 10 o'clock appointment. But welcome, we're very excited to have you here this morning and to hear your presentation. You'll just need to push the button on the microphone there.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, Reeve Link, and good morning, Council. My name is Zach Cunningham, and I am the Calgary Region Hydrogen Hub Lead. In addition, we have 2 people online, 2 of my colleagues calling via Telelink. Prachi Jangjid, who is the Director of Low Carbon Fuels with the Transition Accelerator, has a broad downstream experience with Imperial Oil, worked in hydrogen for many years. In addition, we have Barbara Coral, who is the principal at Pytho Group. She has a lot of experience, particularly working with the GOA, and was the former Executive Director of Natural Gas Strategy. So this morning, I'm hoping to give you a very quick overview of the report and the work we've been doing so far related to Wheatland County. I will just say from the start, 20 minutes is a very short time to disseminate a lot of information. So I would encourage everyone here to please read the report when we do come out with it here publicly. And I'm happy to come back and answer any more questions and go further in depth into some of our results that we have. So with that, I'll get started. So today, I think it would be useful to achieve 3 objectives. First one would be to establish a baseline understanding of hydrogen, kind of the current state where we're at today. Second would be to understand, what were we doing? What were the objectives of our study? And really, how did we do that? What was our methodology behind that? And then third, present a high-level overview of our findings. So hydrogen basics and kind of the current state of where we're at today, because I think it's really important to highlight that. So when we talk about hydrogen, you often hear a lot about the future demand, the future opportunity, the future potential for hydrogen. Well, if we look at the bar on the left there, that's our energy system today. You can see that it's primarily made up with fossil fuels. Certainly this is Canada-wide, not Alberta specific, but Alberta doesn't look much different. So we see it's definitely met primarily on an energetic basis by fossil fuels. And you see there's many sophisticated organizations such as IEA, CER, Department of Energy that all release long-term energy scenarios, 2050, 2060, 2080, where they predict or they model what certain energy systems would look like. And I can say this, very, very bluntly, that they're all going to be wrong. These are not forecasts, these are scenarios with certain assumptions within them. So I'm not going to come here today and say how much of a role hydrogen is going to play in a future energy system. But there's one thing we do know from all of these organizations, one common thread that we can take away from that is that electricity will dominate our future energy mix. So between all of these projections from all these sophisticated organizations with many smart people working behind them, is that electricity can be predicted to have about 2 to 3 times the contribution to the energy system it has today. And I think it's pretty hard to disagree with that when we talk data centers, all these different things. So electricity is growing. But it's important to understand that there is a gap. So electricity cannot meet all of our energy system needs in the future or now, certainly. And this gap, we don't know exactly how big it is, but we know it does exist. And what is in that gap? Well, within this gap, there could be more electricity. There could be biofuels. There certainly will be biofuels. There'll be a role for hydrogen, and there'll be a role for fossil fuels with carbon capture and removals. So I think the important part in what we do organizationally and what we look at as the hub is hydrogen is going to have a bigger role in our energy system moving forward. We don't know exactly how much, but that's less important than knowing that there is going to be a growing demand for hydrogen production and hydrogen end use. So what makes up that gap in terms of end uses? Well, it's moving heavy things across the landscape. It's long haul trucking. It's trains, as we can see certainly with CPKC's hydrogen locomotive program. It's going to be marine shipping. It's going to be aviation, not directly as in hydrogen planes using direct hydrogen, but sustainable aviation fuel that requires hydrogen as part of the process to make this fuel. And there are other applications such as heating, high temperature industrial heating, and potentially blending into our natural gas system. Certainly, we see a lot of news around that with ATCO and a number of other players interested in that. But the big piece here is hydrogen has a role where there are not other compelling alternatives, where electrification can't meet it. We think long-term, long distance trucking, cold weather, it just doesn't work right now. So when we think about a future energy system, this is kind of how it could look like. We see that it's an integrated energy system. We see that electricity has a very big role. We see hydrogen has a large role too, and we see fossil fuels having a large role, both in producing hydrogen, producing electricity directly with carbon capture. We see hydrogen producing electricity, we see electricity producing hydrogen, and we see a number of different sources of electricity production. So this is kind of how we can think of the future, very similar to our energy system today. It's a diverse mix. It's an integrated portfolio of energy sources. And I think that's really important to understand. Hydrogen is not a silver bullet. It's not a panacea. It's not going to fill every role, but it does have an important role. And what we're learning is that the use cases have narrowed, but deepened with hydrogen. So where are we today in the hydrogen ecosystem? Well, certainly a lot has changed. It's a very rapidly moving space. And to be honest, progress on hydrogen adoption has been a lot slower than we initially anticipated. I think that kind of goes with anything that gets hyped up, and we definitely did go through a bit of a hype cycle with hydrogen over the past 3 or 4 years. And now we're kind of back to reality now. Then the players that are actually doing things are still in the space, and a lot of them have kind of left, that we're not so serious. A really impactful part of this slide is the US U-turn on energy policy. So that's not hydrogen specific, but that's many different types of new or low carbon energy. And that obviously has a flywheel effect on Canada, right? And really probably the most impactful point on this slide is our consumer-facing carbon tax has been removed in Canada. So the incentive to use hydrogen, the incentive to use low carbon energy sources is gone essentially. So that really impacts folks wanting to adopt or use technology such as this. In addition, there's been a lot of high-profile hydrogen startup bankruptcies. So Nikola, Trucking, Hyzon, although some of the assets have been purchased and there are organizations that are carrying those forward, there have been a lot of challenges. And I would argue that's more of a startup challenge than a hydrogen-specific thing. So it's tough being a startup, particularly in a new energy space. And I think everybody here probably has a good awareness that our focus has shifted, right? So before we were very focused on decarbonization, everything there, but now we're focused on energy sovereignty, our cost of living, how do we pay for groceries, right? That's very much the focus for the average person today. So I would argue that the hydrogen story is certainly not gone. It's just going through a slow period today, and we need to recognize that, but understand that in the future, hydrogen is going to play a more impactful role than it does today. So a little bit of our study objectives. So coming into this, we really wanted to understand objectively, data-driven objectively, to understand the local hydrogen demand within Wheatland County specifically. That's some of the traffic that runs through Wheatland County, the municipal fleets that exist within Wheatland County. Where is there any opportunity for hydrogen within that? In addition, kind of the big prize, as I would understand from Wheatland County's perspective, is the export potential to Calgary. Obviously, Calgary's a much larger economy, and is there some chance for Wheatland County to participate as a producer for hydrogen that could be sold to Calgary? In addition, we wanted to understand for Wheatland County, what is the value chain participation potential in terms of manufacturing, value chains, stuff like that, where Wheatland County could play a meaningful role. So in addition, we did a lot of desktop research, a lot of data crunching, a lot of quantitative stuff, but we also engaged heavily with industry within Wheatland County and abroad outside of Wheatland County. I believe it's in the realm of about 27 organizations we engaged with, multiple interviews, really to get down to the nitty gritty, boots on the ground. Can this work? Where are the opportunities? Where are the barriers? What are the conditions required for success? To talk a bit about the study findings, again, I would say this is just a very small snapshot of what's going to be in the full report, but this is just a very high level of some of the demand, the regional demand. And on the left side, you can see this is Wheatland County demand. Within this, we see long-term transportation potential for about 7.4 tons of hydrogen per day could be used within the county. And making up the vast majority of that is heavy-duty fleets. That's about 80% of future potential demand, because it's one of the most compelling use cases, right? Long-term freight. In addition, we see that there could be a role for freight by rail. We're seeing that today with CPKC. They are moving forward with their locomotive project, and the rail line does go through Wheatland County. So there is an opportunity there. In addition, there are some opportunities for municipal fleets, certain use cases where there's intensive duty cycles where battery electric just couldn't work, right? Then if we look on the right pie chart there, we see Calgary. And obviously Calgary is a much bigger economy. It's orders of magnitude bigger, the potential long-term demand with the scenario we ran. So again, a very similar story here in terms of use cases. We see heavy-duty fleets making up probably 75% of the mobility market within Calgary. Heavy freight by rail, same thing. It's a large component. And because Calgary has a large municipal fleet, we see a big role for that. And I can certainly say that we are engaging heavily with Calgary municipal fleets, from transit to green fleets, a variety. They are moving forward on some municipal fleet action with their pilots, and they're very interested in this. So I think it's useful to talk a little bit about Wheatland County's unique advantages as it compares to other municipalities. And I think Wheatland County has a lot of really unique advantages. First, its proximity to Calgary. Thinking of, the Alberta industrial heartland to Edmonton, Wheatland County could be that area. There's attractive industrial space, certainly for industrial projects that would be related to hydrogen production, more so than inside of the city of Calgary, right? Also, a very important piece would be the access to transportation corridors. So that's rail, particularly with CPKC's interest in hydrogen economy, and there's multiple highways running through the municipality, which is not news to you folks. Importantly, there are active players in the space. Whether you know it or not, you already are in the hydrogen ecosystem. And you have some really interesting organizations doing some really leading edge work. So that's Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels, that's the Nutriens, that's the Oricas. These need hydrogen to do their work, right? To make their products. And in the future, there is a high possibility of carbon capture infrastructure, reconciliation energy, which could play a key role in the production of low carbon hydrogen in the future. So I would say that structurally, Wheatland County is well positioned to participate in the hydrogen economy of the future. So this is quite a complicated figure, and I'll try to break it down here. So this is the medium-term opportunities that we see through some of our analysis for Wheatland County. Medium term, talking 2035. On the left of the figure, you can see there are critical dependencies. It's kind of like a little legend there, picture legend. These are what are required to make any of these, to realize any of these opportunities, ranging from land to road access to water, all sorts of stuff like that. So there's 5 key opportunities that we've identified. And I'm going to talk briefly about each one, and happy to answer any questions after. And there is much more detail in the report. So certainly first, and arguably the most lowest hanging opportunity, is using some of the hydrogen production that already happens, the byproduct hydrogen that is produced by Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels. They produce excess hydrogen. They're currently reburning it right now in their steam methane reformer as part of their process. But theoretically, this hydrogen could be used and could be sold to mobility applications or other industries for a premium versus just burning it within their steam methane reformer. We've engaged heavily with them. They are interested in participating. Again, it's just more to come on that story. The second opportunity here would be something like a small-scale refueling station. Speaking with folks at Alberta Motor Transport Association, they identified the Highway 1 rest stop, that type of area, as a pretty attractive area for refueling for heavy-duty freight. Otherwise, you're competing pretty directly with Calgary in terms of refueling if a truck's coming in, right? Third, we see that there could be some opportunity for delivering hydrogen that is produced in Wheatland County at a small scale to Calgary. That would be early stages. There's still very low demand, but as demand grows, this could be done through road transportation of mobile refueling, gaseous hydrogen to Calgary. 4, I'm going to skip over. I'm going to come to that at the end, Number 5, we see there's an opportunity for hydrogen to be blended in a cogeneration plant. We did talk to TC about that, and there is a possibility and a potential to do that technically. It's technically feasible. And then 4, probably I would argue the most impactful one, I would say for Wheatland County right now would be hydrogen parts manufacturing, assembly, and retrofits. That's part of the value chain. That's not directly production or directly demand, but all the supporting, all the ancillary pieces along the value chain that need to exist for a hydrogen economy. So when we talk about these pieces, if we look at kind of nationwide, we see that there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of Canadian innovation happening. We see, for example, DTI out of Edmonton. They're making hydrogen diesel dual fuel vehicles, right? And they're excellent technology, moving forward with it, really industry leading. We see Bilton. They're working hard in Innisfail with the CPKC project, helping to manufacture locomotives that are hydrogen ready. CPKC, obviously based in Calgary, Ogden, they're doing a lot of work there, in-house engineering, some fantastic work, huge innovation, international innovation in hydrogen freight locomotives. Ballard, we have certainly some homegrown innovation in Vancouver there. Fuel cells, they've been around for a very, very long time. We see ATCO and Power, Fort Saskatchewan. They have refueling infrastructure. They have an electrolyzer in Calgary and in Edmonton as well. And they're very much moving forward. There's a number of, the point here is there's a number of innovators across the country that are all part of that value chain. And I would argue that Wheatland County already has some critical mass, right? You already have the Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels, you already have the Orcas, you already have the Nutrients, folks that are already in the space. And I would say there's a very compelling argument to attract further innovators to Wheatland County to continue growing on that industrial base that's hydrogen centric. And that ties back into the US U-turn on its energy policy. So although it's bad and tariffs, there's a lot of implications from that. I would say there's a great opportunity from that as well, certainly for Canada-wide. There's a lot of companies that are closing up shop in the US and would be interested in moving into Canada. And Wheatland County could be a potential source, location for them to move to. When we talk about our long-term, so I guess maybe I'll go back a second here. So when we talk about medium-term opportunities, really the key points here is, while demand builds, there should be a focus on small on-site production or existing production, such as Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels, and just to support the emerging transport sector and other niche cases. When we talk long-term opportunities, and well, what do I mean by long-term? We don't have a date specifically for long-term, but what long-term would mean when there's substantial demand that exists, right? So we don't know exactly when that could be, but that's a case where there could be a compelling opportunity for Wheatland County to be the producer of hydrogen for a large city center like Calgary, which would arguably have a larger demand for hydrogen. A lot of these are dependent upon, certainly it's all dependent upon the demand existing in Calgary, but there could be a compelling case for hydrogen to sustainable aviation fuel. You know, you have de Havilland, you have the Calgary International Airport. These organizations, there is not a compelling alternative for aviation other than sustainable aviation fuel in the future. There isn't one right now. In terms of Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels, there could be more production coming out of that could be used for fueling station production and refueling. Carsland, there could be potentially a steam methane reformer, autothermal reformer, larger scale production that could exist within Wheatland County, and that would require some sort of transportation infrastructure to bring that to Calgary. And again, here we have number 2, similar, the parts manufacturing, assembly, and retrofits. And in addition, if carbon capture infrastructure could be built within Wheatland County, there's a great opportunity for producing low carbon hydrogen in the future. So maybe I'll pass it over to Barb Coral, if it's possible via the telelink, to talk a little bit about the policy side of things. I don't know if there's anything.
Fantastic. I'll just do an audio check first to see, can everyone hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yep, you can. Thank you very much, Zach, and well done. I think that Zach has provided an excellent overview of the rigorous approach that the team took to surfacing those key data insights. My piece as the engagement lead really has been to bridge beyond the quantitative analysis into that qualitative insights that were generated through the engagement with both local, regional, and in some cases international stakeholders. So first of all, I'll just remind us all that we were in the field doing this engagement from April to the middle of September, interviewed roughly 30 plus organizations in 2 tranches. I would say that we had excellent participation with senior representatives from these companies up to and including CEO level. Another point I'll flag is that we certainly did create a bit of a buzz. And in fact, I think your economic development team will be fielding some calls from some companies who are operating outside of the Wheatland County area that have expressed some interest potentially in shifting some of their production and operations into the region. So that's very good. Lest you become a bit nervous, I will flag also, though, that we did say in all of our interviews that, you know, our inquiry was simply to generate data and analysis and understanding of the value chain opportunity. So we said in no way were we looking to flag that, you know, this value chain was representing a focus of Wheatland County policy. So we didn't want anyone running to officials saying, well, I hear you guys are doing hydrogen in a big way. We said we were simply looking to understand this value chain opportunity. So great participation, fantastic insights. I will say at a very high level, some of what was generated is very typical of insights that we're seeing globally. So, you know, certainly some of these barriers may seem pessimistic, but as Zach flagged, it really reflects the fact that globally we are seeing some challenges in establishing what is in essence a brand new energy system. And if you think back to the days of the oil sands, that was a pretty tough go for decades until some of the fundamentals were established. And so really the world, I think, now is understanding just how complex this value chain is. Anything that has to do with making, moving, storing, or using, or regulating hydrogen has to be built. And that's not an easy thing to do and accomplish in a few short years. The good news is certainly, as Zach indicated, I'd say globally, we are seeing that the world absolutely is committed to incorporating this low carbon fuel into existing energy systems. So we're just now really doubling down to understanding how best to do that. And most particularly, how to build out the ecosystem without adding unnecessary cost. So those are just a few kind of high level comments from me. The barriers that were surfaced, again, are pretty typical globally and certainly provincially as well. The number one barrier, quite frankly, is an unwillingness or an inability to pay that premium cost for hydrogen. So the affordability of hydrogen is a key barrier. And certainly, if I reflect on the work that I led for the province when we did the hydrogen roadmap, you know, initially 4 years ago, the province focused on providing big incentives on the production side. Increasingly, as the province is looking to sharpen the pencil going forward through the hydrogen roadmap refresh, there is an acknowledgement that really where that incentive point needs to shift to is probably on the consumption side. So this is actually quite good news, I would say. Not sure exactly what the province is going to do or if it is going to be anything from an incentive perspective, but certainly all of the information and perspectives that are going back provincially is that, you know, you have to levelize the cost of hydrogen adoption or you're not going to see any market development. Another point I'll flag here within that economic barrier is within the realm of customers expressing an unwillingness to pay a premium price for hydrogen. We did surface a willingness on the part of the heavy-duty truck companies to potentially take on some additional cost. We had some good intel from HTEC and others showing that they expect, you know, a 20% total cost of ownership premium to be within the realm of acceptable. And I think that's one of the reasons why the team has focused on that mobility pathway as probably being the best market for Wheatland County. Looking at regulatory and policy uncertainty, again, you know, these shifting geopolitics are really pushing some downward pressure on the value chain. The reality is that, you know, hydrogen needs to have certainty, certainly on carbon policy, and we did see changes on that here nationally. We've seen some changes provincially as well, with the provincial government making some changes to the TIER program. So as long as there's uncertainty on what that carbon price may be, we're going to see some reluctance on the part of investors to push those final investment decisions. There is a perception of investor risk, and whenever there is investor risk, that adds to capital costs and decisions, and that is already a challenging value chain. So certainly carbon pricing will need to have that stable floor and some predictability going forward before you're going to see very large FIDs going forward.
Good morning. Just a point from administration. Our presenter has exceeded the 20-minute maximum mark. If council wishes to continue hearing from the presenter, they'll just need to pass a motion. And if not, council could ask the presenter to wrap up. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accept the hydrogen opportunity assessment report as information. To continue with the
presentation. Council may wish to also put a a motion on the floor to put the maximum amount of time as well, or you can just leave it open, whatever council wishes. Thank you.
I move that council accept a 20-minute extension on the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussions on the motion? This is just part of our procedure bylaw. Hearing none, I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Please proceed, Ms. Coral.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate your interest in hearing what we have to say. Hopefully you'll consider it to be time well spent. So looking at that third category of infrastructure and ecosystem lag, and again, this really is consistent globally. One of the differences I would highlight, though, is a difference between British Columbia and Alberta with respect to how hydrogen has built out in these two provinces. In British Columbia, what we've seen is through enabling provincial policy, a company, HTEC, of course, which is that vertically integrated player, really being given a mandate to build out the full hydrogen value chain. And so you've seen some better progress, I would argue, in British Columbia in seeing hydrogen adoption across certainly that mobility pathway. In Alberta, although we've had excellent enabling policy, certainly on the production side, we really haven't seen a large player step up and be willing to participate in the build out of that ecosystem. And of course, if it is a bit more controlled, what you see is a better ability to optimize the value chain, to reduce cost and things of that nature. And so I would say that for me, as someone who's had 5 years now in this value chain, that really has been quite an important takeaway, and certainly something for us to chew upon. Feedstock risk is another key area. The reality is that right now in Wheatland County, although you've got some excess hydrogen capacity, what you don't have is spec hydrogen, that pure hydrogen which is needed by the trucking companies and for the purposes of blending into the utility heat market. And so until you see a willingness on the part of a producer to purify hydrogen, it restricts the ability of that excess hydrogen to be used for these new market applications. And so this is where we see a little bit of that chicken and the egg case where, you can't see the ecosystem build out because they haven't got access to the hydrogen, and you're not seeing the hydrogen manufacturer want to take the additional capital to purify because they know that they lack a customer willing to pay the additional premium for that pure hydrogen. So this again is a challenge that we're seeing certainly in Europe with these FIDs being held back due to cost. Another point that I would highlight is some risk around water. This will be no surprise to you, administration or elected officials, but I would say broadly that there was an acknowledgement as well that Wheatland County has been incredibly proactive in managing water licenses and access to water. And so pretty much everyone we spoke with was saying, yeah, we are aware that this is a challenge, but we don't see this as a game changer or a deal stopper in terms of going forward. So that is a very high level overview of what some of the key barriers that we heard by theme. I'll flag that you will receive a very detailed engagement report, which is, I think, an important part of the overall analysis that was done. And in it, we do identify names of, the company certainly that highlights what the opportunity may be and what the challenge may be, where the barrier exists and how it might be resolved. So that's it from me.
Great, thanks, Barb. So maybe we can just get into some recommendations. So certainly we recommend that the municipality of Wheatland County should engage actively with other levels of government, regulators, appropriate utility providers to close regulatory gaps, to understand where gaps exist that could impede progress. And Wheatland County could send clear signals to partners and potential investors that it is open for business, certainly as a hub for natural gas value add development to ensure hub optimization. And really that's the whole big value chain piece, that you already have some critical mass going with existing players in the space within the municipality, and to build on that. And then just to align on local policies and permitting to reduce costs and optimize processes to its existing industrial base to resolve and minimize dependencies applicable to the region. So a thriving industrial base exists in Wheatland County. They could offer a lot of benefits to your constituents, and high-paying jobs, and you have an ability to attract new technologies and value chains that will be, a part of the future energy system. So I think there's a great opportunity there, and you already currently have excess hydrogen supply within the county. And how do you connect that to markets that would be looking for that? And that would be ideally the Calgary metropolitan market. So really, it's about the industrial base within Wheatland County, and it could be very much a springboard for future growth, particularly around hydrogen. And they could be a key enabler of this growth. And then one thing I will say, Barb mentioned Europe. I was in Rotterdam recently for the World Hydrogen Summit, and Europe's moving forward. So we hear our neighbors to the south kind of dominate the news for us, right? But Germany, they're putting in 500 kilometers of pipeline. This year will be done. They're looking at, I think, 8,000 by 2030. So these European countries are moving forward on it. They are not stopping. They are not stalling. And I would argue, despite us being in a little bit of a slow period for hydrogen, we are lucky to be in the best jurisdiction in the world, I would argue, for hydrogen production and use, because of our low cost and abundant natural gas resources and our expertise and capacity for carbon capture, a variety of different things. So that is really the value add for the province, and certainly for Wheatland County as well. So happy to take any questions if there is any. Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I turned my hearing aids up to sound different now. On page 73, you have a graph there, yeah. 7% municipal uses, that would be Wheatland County municipal fleet?
Yeah, so certainly for the left figure, that would be 7% of the 7.4 tons a day could theoretically be used by the municipal fleets within Wheatland County. So we looked at each of we chatted with your fleet manager and determined which use cases would be most applicable. Certainly we didn't consider light duty vehicles or anything like this, but this could be the Class 8 trucks, the heavy duty trucks, where the compelling alternatives don't exist.
Okay. So what would it cost to change a truck over to use hydrogen?
Yeah, good question. So it depends on the technology. So we have a few different technologies that exist or are under development for trucking. So I would say arguably probably the one that's moving the most forward, the quickest in the province is hydrogen diesel dual fuel. So that's taking an existing chassis, an existing truck, essentially bolting on some direct port injection, putting a hydrogen tank on there and having a fuel controller, very similar to the fuel controllers we have on a lot of diesel trucks. And that's around, I think, $80,000 to $100,000 for a retrofit kit. And it can, so it does a couple things. So it extends the range, it adds a lot of benefits there, and it is able to displace some of the diesel usage. But then if you don't have hydrogen available, or if it's for some reason it's not around, you can just switch back over to diesel. So it's very low risk for operators, and that's kind of why it's becoming sort of a stepping stone along the way, just to minimize the risk. If we're talking fuel cell electric, those vehicles are much more expensive, and right now they're still under development. So, you know, with the Nikola and the Hyzon going bankrupt, those were challenges. There is an organization that's taking over Nikola's assets and moving forward with that, but that's still a bit of a longer term. Hyundai does offer heavy duty vehicles here as well. I know the Alberta Motor Transport Association is bringing 2 in. They just got them, I believe. They're still in BC, but there's some challenges there because of our weights, of our weight classes of Canadian heavy duty vehicles. They're a bit different than European weights or that. So there's challenges there. And then there is hydrogen internal combustion engines. So essentially imagine a propane truck, but running off of hydrogen essentially. So those are in development as well, but we don't have any commercial versions of that available right now.
Okay, so we switch it over. Is there going to be less, let's just say, pollution? Is it going to be a greener truck?
Yes. So essentially, okay, there's a little bit of nuance there. So essentially, if we look at point of use, so when you combust hydrogen, let's just imagine a hydrogen diesel dual fuel, right? So you combust hydrogen, the only product is water out of that combustion process. But there are upstream emissions associated with producing that hydrogen. So it depends how it's produced. So right now we produce the vast majority, we produce 2.5 million tons of hydrogen annually in the province. The vast majority of that's for feedstock use, upgrading petrochemicals. That's produced with steam methane reforming, and it's unabated steam methane reforming. So there is carbon emissions that come from that at where it's produced. But at the point of use, so if it was being used in Wheatland County, there would be no point of use emissions. So theoretically, it would displace a portion of that diesel use in a dual fuel vehicle.
But it should be a net or a positive contribution to the environment.
Yes, so that's a big thing, right? So at the early stages of the ecosystem, we're seeing that we don't want perfection to be the enemy of the good, is kind of how we look at it. So certainly in Europe, what I heard over there was they have very strict carbon intensity requirements for their hydrogen ecosystem. They want any hydrogen to be accepted as green, to be very, very low, produced via water electrolysis or carbon capture. Those things don't exist really yet in a large scale. So they're kind of slowing down their progress. Our organizational position is let's just get using this stuff. So let's get using it. Let's let the technology develop and grow and the end use cases. All of this start to scale. If we look at our diesel and gasoline value chain, it took over a century to develop to how optimal it is right now that we can just go get it anywhere, right? So it's going to take some time. And I think right now we need to focus on just the demand side, using the stuff and getting familiar with it and becoming adept at producing the technology.
So the line of my questioning isn't municipal, it's agriculture. Mm-hmm. And the agricultural industry now, on the cattle side, the methane, they've been working on that with different feed types, different feeding methodologies, and they've brought that number down considerably. One of the biggest obstacles for agriculture is diesel fuel. And I know these new combines, they got like 16-liter engines in them, twice as big as anything the county owns. There are farmers out there who own as much equipment as the county does. If it's profitable for a municipality the size of Wheatland, I'm thinking our huge base of agriculture, that's what we are, it's agriculture. This could be a boom for agriculture to lower carbon footprint. We have the capabilities right now in the county for IP preserved seeds, grains, and we can ship them all over the world, individual cargo containers, they put them on cargo ships, they load them just outside of the office here. And they can be certified low carbon too. And I think that would be a huge benefit, but I don't see anybody talking about it. I think if you could put that on your radar for all of Alberta, I think there would be, if we're gonna make it, why don't we use it where we make it, right? If we're gonna make it here in Wheatland County, the hydrogen, if we got a market right here and would help our producers, not only with fuel, but lowering their footprint, there could be a few dollars in it for the balance of things when you take the total picture into effect. That would be interesting. I'd like to see something on that line, so a study, how much value you could generate. And it would only grow in time, right? Because people become more conscious, they'll pay more. It's the same as, I don't know, you go to the grocery store and you get organic or you get not, right? It's the same thing, it's a consumer choice. Just my thoughts anyway.
Really appreciate that. I'll make sure to give you my card. I'd love to connect with you after if you have some more information on that. Certainly, we see that we've certainly had interest from the ag sector. I'm not talking specifically Wheatland County, but through the Transition Accelerator, I know we have had some engagements where, it is very challenging to decarbonize, right? How do we, ag usage very intensive over a short period of time. Well, battery electric just can't really do that, right? In that same manner. So I think there's a compelling use case. If we look at some leading edge organizations like Emoji, they're out of the US, they're Bill Gates funded, huge money behind them. What they're doing is they're doing ammonia. So they've proven out they've already had an ammonia tractor. I mean, ag industry is familiar with using ammonia already, right? So they can convert that ammonia to hydrogen like on the vehicle itself, and then they burn that and then just release the nitrogen in the air. So there's some compelling use cases, and certainly if you have that market for the product and someone who's willing to pay the green, the organic premium, as you mentioned, if you're shipping your seeds internationally, that kind of thing, I think that certainly could be a compelling use case for sure. And we'd love to explore that a bit more, chat with you a bit more on that.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. Just trying to wonder, with a retrofit of a truck or buying a new truck, you're roughly probably $100,000 difference in what the cost would be. So is the fuel supposed to be cheaper to operate? Because like I own a trucking company, my three biggest costs are insurance, fuel, and labor. All of them are going up all the time. So if there was some other option that it was a cheaper option to do it, of course I would try to look at it. I think back to when we had CNG in the area. We had a refueling station just outside of Strathmore. We were doing local hauling, would have fitted perfect. And my business came really close to buying a truck, but the refueling station is gone now. So I would be out a truck that I could not sell. It would be absolutely useless because it was just meant for local. So yeah, I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and it's one of the big challenges we face, right? That especially when policy's not there to encourage that. I know certainly we have in part of the hub, our hub staff, we have someone seconded from the Alberta Motor Transport Association with us, an expert in that, and we know the margins are very slim, right, and very impactful. So it's not like they have a lot of bandwidth to work with in terms of that. So yeah, it's very much a big challenge. I would say I think the draw for the hydrogen diesel dual fuel at this point is where you can just switch it off and be using a full diesel right now. So this is going to take some time to develop. And again, we come back down to the chicken and egg situation, right? If there's no fuel, like you mentioned, no CNG, well, your truck's, why'd you get the truck, right? So it is very much that ecosystem challenge that we're trying to work towards. And I would argue that it's a strong place for government, for federal, provincial government to play a role in terms of enabling some of that infrastructure, right? If we look at the Trans-Canada Pipeline, if we look at AOSTRA with the oil sands, all of these large government investments to enable these things, that's potentially a role, because like you mentioned, private sector doesn't have huge margins. It can't accept that burden initially as we're trying to build up this value chain that doesn't exist as of yet.
My fear with a lot of these things is government gets involved, we subsidize it, but actually when you got to look past when that subsidy's gone. How does it stand on its own? And I've seen this a few times, and it just doesn't make it past that mark. And I believe one day something will come, And I don't mind the mindset looking that way, but you got to focus on when that subsidy's gone, because it does happen. Can it still be something that's sustainable?
I think you hit the nail right in the head, right? So I certainly, when there's a lot of talk about the diesel parity, kind of on the demand side of things, and having that subsidy, right? And certainly from our position would be, how do you make it self-sustaining, right? You have a 5-year program or however many years. Well, what's the pathway to self-sustaining, right? And I think there needs to be that clear, for any sort of policy, there needs to be that clear self-sustaining, an end to it, right? So it's not, we're just not subsidizing industry forever, right?
If industry built an engine that burnt propane, diesel, natural gas, like if it had a variety of options, that would be something that somebody as looking for a fleet would buy, because you could utilize the best pricing, whatever the best refueling location is. And I believe that technology is out there, but nobody's ever done that where they put it all into one. But it needs to be done.
You know, it's a great point, and certainly we're seeing with some of the dual fuel applications, there's a lot of other anecdotal reports I'm getting in terms of it's the emissions reduction, okay, the displacement of the energy, but then all of the downstream emissions equipment that's bolted onto trucks, as you well know, with all the modern trucks now, having that, because hydrogen burns hotter than diesel, then you're having a bit of, you're cleaning out, you're not clogging your DPFs, your EGRs, all that kind of stuff. So there is some other operational benefits to be using it, but yeah, you're 100% right. How do you minimize risk and adopt the technology?
Actually, it just answered my question. The performance, was it, other than green, what are the benefits to the performance of the engines?
Yeah, so great question. So depending on the type of powertrain, right? So if we're talking a hydrogen diesel dual fuel, I just talked a little bit about that, kind of higher burning temperatures, internal combustion, downstream emissions, equipment seems to be working a bit better. What we've heard anecdotally from people using it, in terms of the fuel cell electric vehicles, which is 100% hydrogen, essentially what you have is you have an electric vehicle, but instead of coming home and plugging it into the wall, you use hydrogen that's in a tank, going through a fuel cell that generates electricity to maintain the charge of the batteries and power the vehicle. So with that electric powertrain, you have a lot of torque benefits. You have direct drive motors instead of a lot of mechanical linkages where there's efficiency losses, all that kind of stuff. So in general, it would be very similar to an electric vehicle in terms of electric vehicle versus a gasoline or diesel vehicle, just in terms of the torque characteristics and that type of thing. So there are some benefits. Certainly, I can tell you a little bit about what we've heard speaking with CPKC, who they love the technology. You know, I think we've all seen a big diesel truck that's deleted, blowing out black smoke. We all live in Alberta, right? We've seen that. So imagine that for a locomotive, right? So, you know, if something's malfunctioning, that's going to be blowing out a lot of really bad smoke. And you think of the folks that are working in the barns fixing these, the mechanics, right? Working on these, they find that it's a lot better. It's a lot cleaner. The vehicles are cleaner. There's not as much residue, any of that kind of stuff, and the noise as well. So it's taken some adjustment for some of the operators to be able to use that, because they just don't have the engines roaring all the time. You're actually using a quiet fuel cell. So there are a number of benefits besides just the carbon intensity, I would argue. But it will just take some adjustment to get used to.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. Thank you for bringing this information. I think it's a good sort of introduction, and I know council will be looking forward to seeing the full findings from the study and the full report. So thank you for coming out. We appreciate it, Zach. Perhaps a motion to accept the presentation as information.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 7.5.
I apologize. My report is on the computer or on the site. The only thing I want to draw attention to, I think everything else has been covered, is the WDEMSA. It was a long session. At the end of the session, there's, so this is strictly information, the proposed per cap for 2026, which is coming, and this is for information, like I have no idea whether I'm going to be sitting in this chair at the next meeting, but so the proposed per capita rate for 2026 is going to be an increase to $12 from $8, so it's a $4 increase. Now this had not been discussed by the board, because even with that the $4 per cap increase to $12, it'll underfund the budget of dispatch by $40,000. So theoretically, the cap should be moved up to $14, so it should be a $6 cap increase. I did not know we had this information. I know I asked for it previously, but we've been, administration has been tracking dispatch since 2016. And since 2016, we have, the Wademsa board has covered dispatch shortfalls to the tune of $1 million. So I don't know if going forward, if we are going to have the funding, Wademsa is going to have the funding from the reserves to continue funding dispatch. So that'll be a discussion that those of you that are sitting at this council table will have to find out. But we have been funding dispatch through Wademsa reserves for the last 10 years. What's on the radar, which is another thing that's going to be a challenge, is we have a PSAP, which is a primary service answering point. And in order to, in our contract for that PSAP, we have to institute NextGen 911 on an off-site location. That is going to be a minimum of $263,000, which theoretically, if you could get a loan for it and you paid it back over 2 years, would add $11 or would add $5.50 per cap for a 2-year period. The problem with Wademsa is a size problem. We've got 25,000 subscribers, and we're trying to fund these when these big ticket items come up. So when the Foothills Fresca one they have a subscription base of 160,000 people. That's like $1 difference when you have to make these capital investments to maintain your contract. Red Deer has over 300,000. That's pennies. City of Calgary's 1.4 million. That's not even on their horizon. So taking off my board hat and sitting and putting on my council hat, I think there has to be some real decisions made on can we afford, going forward, is this a good use of ratepayers' money? So there's also another thing that I came up with when I found I've got a copy of the 2023 to 2025 strategic planning for fire dispatch. And in the fire dispatch, in the discovery of it, there is a liability there of only having one person, so there should be a second seat. I noticed by the plan that there was some discussion, put together to address this, and then it just disappeared, and I have not had a chance to find that out. But if you have to add another seat, another to have two people there all the time, that's going to add significantly to the cap. So these are just questions that I want staff to have information of you at the board that I might be here, might not be here, that we have. But so just want to bring that forward. So if there's any, I'd be glad to answer any questions if I can. And if not, I'll move my report.
I'll just note if there's going to be any discussion, I will recuse myself again.
It's information. This is all this is. I don't
Yeah,
believe.
just if council gets into any,
Yeah,
if there's
okay.
questions or discussion, then I'll recuse myself and turn it over to Deputy Reeve Clausen. If there's no questions, then we can vote on accepting the report for information. Are there any questions? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.6.
My report is on the server. I had an awful time with my computer. I think it knows it's the last meeting, so. Anyway, there was a couple other little things. I want to thank Shanna for going to the Ultras tour. I wanted to go, but I just couldn't fit it into my my schedule. And I've been out to Rosebud a couple times and seen the new culvert installation and road hookups there and stuff. It's from a road perspective, it looks really nice. For the Rosebud scenario, not so nice. It's a bunch of bare dirt, and I know it looks like it's been seeded. And I just wanted to ask staff, when you seed that, can you put in more? Rosebud's got a lot of native grasses there, bushes, shrubs growing in the ditch. This is a riparian area, this road bank there. If we could make it more riparian friendly. I know when we did the campground there, it was washing in and we put a bunch of rock there. We also planted, the Ag Service Board, I know Sarah did, planted a bunch of willows there, little sticks. And you look at it now, it's just, it looks like a natural. If we could fix that ditch up to look much the same, I think it'd be much appreciated down there, because the place fills up with dirty water when the floods come and then they hit the bank and then it could filter out. It does serve a purpose. If we could look into something like that, I think the people down there would really like that.
Yeah, through the Reeve, we can certainly investigate that and see what can be done.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's all I wanted to bring up now. So if there's no questions, I'll move my report.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.7.
My server's on the report. Everything's been pretty much talked about. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll move my report as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Laursen. Any questions? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.71.
I wanted to talk about the Kester versus Wheatland County decision that just came out. I think that this county needs to ensure that it's not going to appeal this again. The ruling was pretty clear. It was clear that Councillors Eichert and Link acted inappropriately. And also Reeve Link published what I can only call a rant that said it was by the Reeve of the county and nothing had been discussed prior to that regarding this ruling. I don't know if you think you're
Brian, little advice is, could this be construed as a conflict of interest for me sitting in here listening?
Through the chair, no, I don't think so.
No, okay.
That decision needs to be made by, you would need to determine that, make that
Just
determination.
looking for advice, I said.
Yeah, my advice would be no, you can just sit through it.
I'm sorry, but staff can't give you that advice. That's up to you.
I said I was looking for advice. I wasn't looking for.
I understand,
disturbing.
but you can't drag staff into that because if there's something with that, staff cannot give you that advice. It's up to you. It's clear in the procurement, in the policy that states that it's up to the individual.
It puts administration in an awkward position. When I've been trying to make that determination in the past, I've engaged my own legal counsel and paid for that to get advice, but ultimately the determination needs to be made by yourself.
That's why I said advice. Advice is non-binding.
Yeah, and I think what Deputy Reeve Clausen, and I agree with Deputy Reeve Clausen, is it puts our administration in an awkward position to be asked to advise on that particular matter. So the MGA is clear that.
If that's the case, I'm going to recluse myself till the discussion's done.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. So Councillor Kester's microphone wasn't on, but he's going to, I believe he means recuse himself from the session. Go ahead, Councillor Laursen.
Okay, I'll back up a little bit since I was interrupted. So Reeve Link published, like I said, what I can only call a rant that made it appear that it came from from her as the Reeve when council had not done any meetings about this prior to it being posted. I have to say I don't understand this, as the Reeve is not running again and is effectively a lame duck in this particular statement. And the post contained untrue statements. So I think we should make sure that we're done with this. The ruling was quite clear. And I also think council should approve remuneration for Councillor Kester's expenses in something that shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Councillor Laursen, can you point out the statements that were not factual in the statement that I made?
I don't have your statement in front of me, so I can't do that. I believe there was an article in the Strathmore's Times that refuted most of it.
I would disagree with that position, but I think if you're going to bring an allegation to this chambers that I, as the spokesperson of this council, made a statement that was inaccurate, I think it would be prudent to have those statements that you allege are inaccurate. I will read the statement on council. I am open to any feedback from council. Under the MGA, the chief elected official is the spokesperson for council. I made the statement based on previous actions that the majority of this council supported, based on actions that council had directed administration to take, and outcomes that were communicated in the ruling. Councillor Kester may claim he won 100% in his report, but the lawsuit and the rulings that resulted from it never overturned his code of conduct violation. The court dealt with procedural issues, not the findings of his conduct as a councillor. The fact remains, he was found by the majority of this council to have breached Wheatland County's code of conduct, and that decision still stands. The sanctions were questioned, the quality of the report was questioned, and I do address that in the statement that I made. It's an expectation that whoever sits in this chair will respond to media. It was unfortunate that there were some constraints on what I could communicate during the legal proceedings, particularly as the person that made the complaint. The statement was just in case council hasn't seen it, and it was shared with media that had inquiries about the outcomes of the ruling. We respect the ruling of the Alberta Court of Appeal and the legal and democratic processes that brought this matter to a conclusion. It is vital in any democracy that elected officials be subject to the rule of law and that there are mechanisms to challenge and appeal decisions. Wheatland County Council exercise those rights in good faith, as we are obligated to defend decisions properly taken by council. However, I must clarify several points, as the recent decision is being publicly framed as a sweeping victory for Councillor Kester. It is not. The court did not find that Councillor Kester was innocent or that he did not breach Wheatland County's Code of Conduct. In fact, the Chamber's judge explicitly upheld Council's decision regarding the Wheatland EMS portion of the complaint and confirmed that our findings on that matter were reasonable. No judge has ever ruled that he did not violate the Code of Conduct. What the court took issue with was the process. The investigation report was found to be flawed in its reasoning on one portion, the Housing Board matter, and Council's procedures at the time. Importantly, this does not mean the misconduct did not occur, only that the way the complaint was processed did not meet the procedural standard the court expected. To be clear, the county has not incurred legal fees related to this appeal or for defending the case brought by Kester. Like most municipalities across Alberta, Wheatland County is insured against legal claims of this nature. It's worth noting that cost considerations shaped the county's approach to investigations at that time, which contributed to the quality issues the court identified. So essentially, I think there was some consideration in trying to limit the amount of money that was spent on the investigative report. There are municipalities who I'm aware of who have hired legal counsel to conduct the investigation, and that may have resulted in a different quality of investigation and report. Council learned from this and implemented significant improvements to our Code of Conduct bylaw, including the introduction of an independent integrity commissioner to ensure more robust and impartial investigations. Ironically, the province has now repealed municipal codes of conduct altogether. On my role as complainant, I was the complainant. It was not a decision I took lightly. It was a last resort. While I respected the process and remained silent throughout the legal proceedings as advised, I am grateful that with the conclusion of the judicial process and the lifting of the publication ban, the complaint is now public, and I can finally share my side of the story. It's been deeply frustrating to watch Kester and his supporters use the legal process to tell only their side of the story, including publishing affidavits laced with personal opinions, as the court themselves noted, while I was advised not to respond publicly. Also, just for council's awareness, I had asked if I could provide my own affidavit and was advised not to do so. As stated in my complaint, Kester's conduct at Wheatland EMS publicly raising an unfounded suggestion of pecuniary interest, then later reporting that I had refused to meet with him, and in conversation with me threatening my husband's employment, harmed my reputation and crossed the line into abuse of power. That behavior was unprofessional and unacceptable, and it was only one incident in a long, ongoing pattern of concerning behavior that had created tension, disruption, and mistrust within council. That was all documented within the complaint and within my information that was provided to the investigator. Council agreed and sanctioned him, as was within their authority at the time. Setting the record straight, not the wind claimed. This is not the vindication of Kester or his legal counsel are portraying. Council's decision was overturned on procedural grounds, not because he was exonerated. You are not innocent simply because a decision is quashed for process flaws. To present this as a personal victory ignores the reality that Kester did violate our Code of Conduct and that the Chamber's judge explicitly upheld that finding in relation to the EMS complaint. A double standard. There's also a clear double standard in how Kester has characterized this process compared to how he acted when he was Reeve. Back in 2015, Councillor supported the censure of Councillor Brenda Knight for breaches of the Code of Conduct emphasizing, and there's publicly available media articles that directly make these statements, that such measures are sometimes necessary, are discussed in camera, and are not undertaken lightly. Yet today, he publicly decries this same process as unfair and secretive, despite Kester having raised no concerns when this long-standing procedure was used for other councillors or when he reviewed and approved our Code of Conduct bylaw and the included processes with council every year annually at organizational meetings. Sorry, that every year is what I'm saying to council. We're all aware that we approved that and there were no concerns raised. The hypocrisy and duplicity of his positions are perplexing and frustrating. Rules for thee, but not for me. Looking ahead, the political reality is that behavior like this will, unfortunately, always exist in public office. It is the responsibility of principled leaders to call it out and to defend the integrity of local government. That is what the majority of our council did. My sincere hope is that the public will see through the misleading narrative being circulated on social media and recognize this decision for what it truly is, a rebuke of our former process, not a vindication of misconduct. Wheatland County Council acted in good faith within the scope of our authority at the time to uphold ethical standards. That remains true today. We learned from this experience, strengthened our policies, and remain committed to upholding the highest standards of integrity and accountability in local government. It's time to move forward, focusing our energy on the issues that matter most to our community, supporting sustainable growth, delivering quality services, and ensuring Wheatland County continues to be a place we are all proud to call home. And I do just want to speak to Councillor Lauerson's request that there be remuneration for Councillor Kester's legal fees. First, I want to emphasize that because it's been suggested that taxpayers have borne the cost of defending legal action related to Mr. Kester, that's incorrect. To be clear, Mr. Kester initiated the lawsuit against Wheatland County, and the county had a responsibility to respond as any organization would when legal action is filed against it. The county's defense costs were covered by our municipal insurance costs as a standard practice, and there were no direct costs to local taxpayers for those legal fees. Of course, I want to acknowledge that insurance premiums reflect the overall claims history of a municipality, so every claim can eventually influence costs across particularly because we're part of an insurance reciprocal. That's why it's in everyone's best interest to avoid unnecessary litigation and to resolve issues through good governance, transparency, and accountability. Litigation should always be a last resort. It's unfortunate this path was chosen by Councillor Kester when the matter could have been resolved through respectful dialogue and adherence to the Code of Conduct process that Council had already followed. The courts have ruled the insurance coverage functioned as intended and taxpayers were protected. From my perspective, there is no basis, legal, financial, or moral, for the county to pay his legal fees. Doing so, I believe, would set an unacceptable precedent and could expose taxpayers to liability in any future case where an individual chose to litigate against our municipality. The county's obligation was to respond, not to pay for the litigants' legal fees. And I will open the floor to any other discussion. Councillor Lauerson.
Okay. Justice D.J. Reed described the investigation report to not contain any summary of evidence from witnesses that is intelligible in any sense. The key findings was the investigation report was fundamentally flawed with no rational analysis linking facts to any alleged misconduct. The municipal council's process was procedurally unfair. And you can talk all you want about insurance paid for it. Premiums for insurance are paid by the people that put it in. So this county pays premiums to the RMA, and in any insurance, you make a claim, your premiums go up. So, and I will leave my motion to approve reimbursement till the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Larson, for reiterating the points that I made in my statement. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I agree that we should move on from this. It's something that I always try to learn from experiences that we had. Never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd be at this point. We, as councillors, and I was involved in the meeting that chaired that meeting because it involved our Reeve, and I followed our document to the letter. I've carried it around with me from the day, that file and the notes made on that file. I was never brought into court to answer to that or anything like that, which is fine. It's what it is. But the decision's been made. But I have to say, the actions here show that this has not been resolved. And that's just the reality of it. We, even prior to going to do our code of conduct and utilizing that, we brought in a consultant and tried to work together, third-party individual. But one person here took this and rallied a whole side of a county against us. And there's so much misinformation out there. And we could not say anything because we followed our code of conduct. We actually signed our code of conduct. We all agreed to it. First, second, third reading, all these things could have been brought up prior to it. We all agreed to it. So have I learned? You bet I have. Have I do things differently? We had the tools. That's the tools we had. So I'd like to move forward.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just a point of clarity from administration. Is there a motion on the floor for reimbursement of legal fees?
No, I said I'd leave that
okay.
till the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So Councillor Larson is rescinding his motion.
Just a question to administration. Is that even a function of council? Because I realize that might be between legal parties.
So through the chair, the courts have ruled on the costs right now. So the ruling that Justice Reed made was on the Court of King's Bench side. So the ruling's publicly available as well. There's nothing that we can really do about it. So it's, again, goes to insurance and they do their thing. I think the Court of Appeal thing is has not been settled, but my understanding is that the legal counsels are chatting to figure out the solution on that. I'm going to guess it's going to be the same. They'll apply the same ruling at the Court of King's Bench to the Court of Appeal. Then it should be over. Council could provide costs above that as well. I think that's just the discretion of council, but that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we will move to agenda item 8.1. If you could let Councillor Kester know we've concluded that agenda item.
Good morning, Council. Brian from administration. On page 107 of your agenda package is a CAO monthly report for September 2025. As always, the council resolution tracker is included in that report and starts on page 109. Anything in yellow is deemed ongoing and anything in green is deemed complete. If there's any questions about this report, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Henderson. Any questions regarding the report? Councillor Kester.
I move that council accepts the September 2025 Chief Administrative Officer report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. A motion regarding the tracker.
I'll move that council accepts the October 7th, 2025 council resolution tracker as information.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.3, 8.13.
Yes, Council. Brian again from administration on page
Sorry, 8.12. My apologies. The RCMP meeting at the Fall Convention opportunity. Sorry.
Good morning, Council. Brian again from administration. On page 116 of your agenda package is the 2025 Fall RMA Convention meeting with the RCMP commanding officer. At the RMA convention meetings, we do get regular requests from the RCMP to meet. And this one is just one that is actually going to fall outside of this council term. So it will be the new council that would be invited to this one as well. So we thought it would be a good opportunity for them to be introduced to the commanding officer with the RCMP and maybe understand the functions that they do serve at the meeting. So what we did was we took the previous topics that we did ask to meet with the commanding officer and put them back into this request. The two topics that we did put forward do still stand, and I think they are still ongoing issues, the police funding model and community public safety in Gleason. So I think that those are two relevant items for the new council members to discuss to the commanding officer at the RMA convention. If there's any other questions about this report, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Henderson. Councillor Kester.
Would there be opportunity to add to points for discussion when the new council comes?
The chair, absolutely. This would be a meeting of the council, and whatever council wishes to bring forward to this as well, you can. And also just to note that the regional officers do come in from time to time as well. They come in the public presentation committee, or they're always reachable as well. So this is the only meeting that a council member will have with the RCMP. Then that's just more for the public record that council does regularly engage with the RCMP. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Any other questions?
Doesn't pertain to this one, but I was wondering that transportation, has the agenda been sent to the, I thought we had a meeting with transportation at RMA, and we're wondering if I was wondering if the agenda's been set.
So there was a request sent out for municipalities to request a meeting. We did send back a request with the topics, and I just can't remember the topics off the top of my head. And the only reason that we responded right away is because the deadline was just prior to the next council meeting. So we did say yes and just confirmed a couple topics. However, the topics we can also amend if the meeting is granted. I think we've been fairly unsuccessful to meet with the transportation minister over the last number of years. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't be this time. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll move that council direct administration to schedule a meeting with commanding officer at the 2025 Fall RMA Convention to discuss the following topics: police funding, model reporting and outcomes, and a request for increased capacity, and community public safety in Gleason.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.13.
Yes, good morning, council. On page 120 of your agenda package is the Elector Assistance at Home RFD. So the explanation in here is basically it's all fairly straightforward in the report. Just a resident does need someone to go to their residence just to collect their ballot for the municipal election. So everything's in here. If there's any questions about this report, please let me know. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
Just have a question. Is this going out on social media or somewhere that, or has it already probably?
So we haven't planned on putting it on social media, just for people that do contact us. But if it is something that council thinks that we should get out there, then we definitely can. However, it is just, I don't think we've had one of these for a long time, at least the last 2 municipal elections. So this is just one resident that inquired in Division 2.
I'll move that council authorizes the returning officer to provide elector assistance at home during the designated advanced voting days for the 2025 municipal election.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any further questions or discussion?
Just reviewing this, I'm wondering, because we're partners with the Strathmore Handy Bus, if there was an opportunity to maybe have that person utilize that to bring them to the electorate? I don't know. I don't know what, because they have a standard for what is disabled and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a different one, but I honestly don't understand.
It's possible that this might not just be a mobility issue. It might be really more than that. But okay.
I don't need the
Yeah.
details.
Yeah, they're unable to leave the home at all, so that's why we'll be going in the home.
Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.14.
Yes, Council, on page 123.
Sorry, CAO Henderson. Councillor Kester.
Just a quick comment. I like to thank our returning officer for being willing to provide this service. I think it's important in the county, and thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Kester. I would echo those comments. Thank you. CAO Henderson.
Yes, Council, on page 123 of your agenda package is the ratification for attendance at the CGC tour. All of council was invited to attend the CGC tour after the council meeting on September 16th, 2025. Council just needs a motion to ratify the attendance there. Thank you.
Thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move to ratify one partial day per diem and mileage for councillors who attended the CGC tour on September 16th, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Eckert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.15, and I actually meant to check with administration. Well, actually, no, we still need to ratify it. My apologies. We're just being asked to ratify council seconding Rocky View County's resolution that they brought to the district meeting last week.
Yeah, and this is kind of just an interesting one because it is something that I did email council about. Probably not important enough to call a special council meeting to get it ratified. Also, the CRMA meeting was moved up because of the municipal election as well. So the timelines of this were all just kind of a little wonky. I don't know what happened at the resolution. I assume it passed.
It did not pass.
Oh, it didn't?
That's actually
Okay.
why I was thinking,
Okay.
but we did
Sounds
second it. So
Okay.
we do need to ratify the motion.
Council should ratify the motion to second it. How it didn't go anywhere, so that's okay. It's good for the membership to get that one on the table and discuss. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
I move that Wheatland County second Rocky View's County Resolution Sustainable Provincial Recreation Strategy for consideration at the 2025 Central Municipalities of Alberta District 2 Fall General Meeting at the 2025 RMA Fall Convention. But it did not make it pass.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion?
I wasn't at the meeting. What was the reason? I read the resolution. It seems to me to make sense. So what was the prevailing reason why it was voted down?
There was robust discussion. I would say the primary concern with advancing the resolution was a potential loss of municipal autonomy if the province were to put in place, even though, and I'm going off memory, the wording of the resolution was guidance or guidelines around cost sharing frameworks. There was some concern that there could be unintended consequences where mandated cost sharing, say, formulas would be instituted by the province. and that there could be additional financial implications for rural municipalities. There was also concerns about prioritizing a request for funding for recreation facilities when RME just brought out that comprehensive study about the significant infrastructure liability for core services, water, wastewater, roads and bridges. And so there was excellent discussion and really good points made. I think there was support for sort of the rationale behind the resolution and the concerns addressed in the resolution, but there was not consensus. I did hear people saying perhaps this could come back slightly reframed so that there were more risk mitigation language, if you will, within the resolution. And please fill in, I'm just going off of memory, so. But that was the majority of discussion.
Thank you.
And just one amendment that council could make to the motion presented is just put a period after the District 2 fall general meeting, because the last
Yes, right.
6 words just don't apply.
Yeah. Thank you. Good catch.
As amended. Thank you for that.
Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.21.
Good morning, Council. Corey from Administration here to present the Corporate and Financial Services Report for September 2025, found on page 132. I just have a couple of things to add. Administration's been working a little bit on the website search, so there's a bit of an enhanced website search feature there. I encourage you to go check it out. It's based on context and responds with some answers as well as some search results. So looking for some feedback there. And some current work is being done to expand our published bylaws on our website using our new Laserfiche tool, which would hopefully be able to also include some of our older stuff that hasn't been on our website, because we'll be able to have access to have that, as well as policies and various others. But we're going to start with the bylaws. And that concludes my report. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the report?
You
want to use your microphone, Councillor?
Just got to go to the website. It should work. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion?
I move the council accept the corporate and financial service report for the September 2025 as information.
Thank you, Councillor Custer. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.31.
Good morning, Council. Sherry Bars with Administration to provide the September 2025 Community and Development Services Update, which is found on page 139 of your agenda package. The only update that I would like to highlight today relates to the AFREX implementation. Prairie Mobile, who is leading the implementation, confirmed that the shipment of all radios have been received, which is approximately 6 weeks ahead of schedule. However, there is some remediation that we will need to do with the order received with antennas that on the mobiles. Prairie Mobile is currently waiting on AFREX to finalize the required paperwork and provide the programming keys needed to program the radios. Once these keys are issued, they will begin programming and setup. We have a testing and initial training program in place along with the rollout plan. While there is no confirmed date for when AFREX will provide the keys, Prairie Mobile is closely monitoring progress and will keep us informed. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the report? A A motion to accept for information.
I move that council accepts the September 2025 Community and Development Services Report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Brigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.32.
Good morning, Sherry Bars again with administration, presenting a request that council appoint the general manager of Community and Development Services as the Director of Emergency Management for Wheatland County. The report's found on page 148 of your agenda package. Under bylaw 2024-16 and the Local Authority Emergency Management Regulation, council as the designated local authority and emergency advisory committee is required by resolution to appoint a director of emergency management to oversee the county's emergency preparedness and response efforts. This appointment will ensure continuity of leadership and support of the county's ability to effectively manage emergencies. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council appoints the general manager of Community and Development Services as Director of Emergency Management for Wheatland County.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 8.41.
Good morning, Council. Brad Bullock presenting the September 2025 Transportation and Agriculture Department report. The report begins on page 151 of the agenda, and I am here to answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the report?
I did have one question regarding under capital projects, page 163, you talk about Redland and water servicing, and I was curious, it indicates that admin is pursuing other options for them for water servicing. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the last time this came to council, we did propose a funding structure with the residents of Redland. That funding structure was set up essentially as separate contracts or cost sharing agreements with each residence that was interested in obtaining water servicing and paying for that water servicing on a full cost recovery basis per council's direction. We have reached out to the residents. We had responses from some of the residents. To date, none of the residents have signed those agreements, but administration has had some feedback from some residents, and so we are reviewing that feedback, seeing what potential options might be available. Obviously, before we went ahead with any kind of alternate direction on that, we would come back to council for that. So I hope that answers your question, but we're just sort of reviewing that in terms of the feedback that we've received to date.
We'll go Councillor Brigger and then Councillor Eichert, and then Deputy Reeve Lawson.
So I have a question on Muirfield waste in Carsland. It still seems to be a problem getting complaints of the smell. Have you guys looked into the aeration or the Rosebud hookup? Whereabouts is that at for that situation?
Yes, through the chair, we are reviewing that. We have taken a lot of those questions back to our engineering consultant as well, just to make sure we bring back fulsome information as well as make sure everything's factual. As far as the Rosebud, it looks like, as far as accepting all of the waste from Muirfield, it appears from our initial reviews that it wouldn't have the capacity to handle all of the waste from Muirfield. However, we will come back with a fulsome report on those questions, still under review. I suspect we should have those back to council by sometime in November. Those
Great, thank
questions.
you.
Want to thank you, thank the workers out there. 240 is progressing very, very nicely. We haven't hit the water line, so we're good there. And I also want to thank for the work being done on the Cheadle Community Hall parking lot. That's progressing very nicely. So thank you very much for doing all the work in my division. Thank you.
For me, I just, from the residents of Muirfield with the contractors and the contract oversight and everything's been done there, it's been almost a very low complaints. Everybody seems to have been very happy with the progress. And the new pavement looks really good. The north access looks really good. We've done some dust control there, so everything's been, just so impressed with the work quality and everything. So thank you very much for everybody.
Any other questions regarding the report?
I'll just move that council accepts the 2025, September 2025 Transportation and Agriculture Department report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. That motion is carried. Just before we go into closed session, just to expand on the things from Councillor Eichert, I just want to, it's my last council meeting. Want to thank my colleagues and also thank our entire Wheatland County team. We have a phenomenal team that works in every single department in this county, and we're incredibly blessed to have the team that we have. The services that we deliver and the quality of those services, but also the efficiency of the way that we operate the entire county. I know it's done with commitment, and that we don't thank you enough. So thank you for everything that you do for Wheatland County, for our residents, for our businesses, and just for everybody in Wheatland County. Thank you. We appreciate it. With that, we have one agenda item remaining, and that was the addition for our closed session. So I will move us into closed session and call the question.
You might have that, but you want.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Did Councillor Larson vote? I think we'll just proceed. He could have requested.
Last council meeting anyhow.
Well, I think we can just call the vote. We have, if he chose not to vote, he didn't request a recess. So I'm assuming we have quorum. We have quorum, and you have quorum votes, so. That motion is carried, and administration can let us know when you're ready to.
I'll move that council approve changes to HR policy 6.4.1, organizational chart, and HR policy 6.2.1, pay structure, pay grid, as presented in camera.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. That motion is carried. And that concludes our agenda. And our final meeting of this term is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.